The Arizona sun beat down on the cracked asphalt as Marcus Chen pulled his delivery truck onto the shoulder of Interstate 10. He'd been driving for 6 hours straight, and his muscles ached from gripping the wheel through the desert heat. The flashing lights in his rearview mirror had appeared out of nowhere, and now his heart hammered against his ribs. Officer Rachel Morrison stepped out of her patrol car, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, aviator sunglasses reflecting the harsh midday glare. She'd been a highway patrol officer for 3 years, and this stretch of road between Phoenix and Tucson had become as familiar to her as her own apartment. Marcus rolled down his window, keeping both hands visible on the steering wheel, a habit his father had drilled into him since he was 16. "License and registration," Rachel said, her voice crisp and professional. "Of course, officer." Marcus reached slowly for the glove compartment, extracting the documents with deliberate care. "May I ask what I did wrong?" Rachel examined his license, her expression unreadable behind those reflective lenses. "Your left taillight is out, Mr. Chen. That's a safety violation." "A taillight?" Marcus felt a surge of frustration. "I just had my truck inspected last week. Everything was fine." "Well, it's not fine now." Rachel began writing on her citation pad, her pen moving with swift precision. "I'm going to have to issue you a ticket. That'll be $250. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. $250 was half his weekly pay. His daughter's birthday was next week, and he'd already promised her the bicycle she'd been begging for. "Officer, please. I'm a delivery driver. I'm on the road 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. If there's any way. I don't determine the fines, Mr. Chen. I just enforce the law." But something in her voice had softened slightly. She glanced at his commercial driver's license again, noting his spotless driving record printed on the back. "You've been driving for 15 years without a single violation." "Yes, ma'am. I take my job seriously. I have a family depending on me." Rachel paused, her pen hovering over the citation. She removed her sunglasses, and Marcus found himself looking into striking green eyes that seemed to be reassessing him. There was something about the way he carried himself, respectful but not servile, worried but not aggressive. And those eyes of his, warm and honest, with crow's feet that suggested he smiled often. "You know," Rachel said, her tone shifting from official to something more conversational, "I could write this up as a warning instead. First-time violation, clean record." She tapped the pen against the pad. "But department policy usually requires a citation for safety equipment failures." "I understand. I'm not asking for special treatment." "No, you're not." Rachel found herself intrigued by that. Most people argued, made excuses, sometimes even tried to bribe her. This man simply accepted responsibility with quiet dignity. She glanced at his left hand and noticed the gold wedding band. "Your wife is a lucky woman, Mr. Chen." Marcus smiled for the first time, and Rachel felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "I'm the lucky one, officer. 15 years married, and she still makes my coffee every morning before I leave for work." Rachel felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the desert sun. That's really sweet." She cleared her throat, trying to regain her professional composure. "Look, I'm going to let you off with a warning this time. But get that taillight fixed today, understand? If another officer stops you before it's repaired, you won't get off so easy." "Thank you, Officer Morrison. Really, thank you. You have no idea what this means." Rachel began writing the warning citation, but her mind was racing. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been this drawn to someone. Most of the men she met were either fellow officers who treated dating like a competitive sport, or civilians who were intimidated by her badge. But this man, married, unavailable, completely off-limits, radiated a warmth and steadiness she found magnetic. "Officer?" Marcus's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Yes?" I just wanted to say, your department is lucky to have someone like you. Someone fair. Rachel handed him the warning slip, and their fingers brushed for a moment. Mr. Chen, can I ask you something? Off the record? Sure. She took a breath, knowing she was crossing a line but unable to stop herself. If you weren't married, and I know you are, and I respect that, but hypothetically, if you weren't, I'd ask for your number. The words hung in the desert air between them. Marcus stared at her, surprise and something else. Was it flattery, flickering across his face? Officer Morrison, I know. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. Rachel felt her face burning. What was she thinking? Forget I said anything. Please. Just get your taillight fixed. She turned quickly and walked back to her patrol car, her heart pounding with embarrassment and confusion. As she pulled back onto the highway, she watched Marcus's truck in her rearview mirror, still parked on the shoulder. What had possessed her to say that? She'd never crossed that boundary before, never let her personal feelings intrude on a traffic stop. Marcus sat in his truck for a long moment, staring at the warning slip in his hand. Officer Morrison's words echoed in his head. He thought of his wife, Linda, waiting at home with their 2 daughters. He thought of the 15 years of marriage, the mortgage, the minivan, the dance recitals and parent-teacher conferences that made up the fabric of his life. And then he thought of the way Officer Morrison's eyes had looked at him, like he was someone worth seeing, not just another driver in an endless stream of traffic stops. He shook his head, started the truck, and pulled back onto the highway. Some roads weren't meant to be traveled, no matter how inviting they appeared. 3 weeks passed before Rachel saw Marcus again. She'd thought about him more than she cared to admit, during her night shifts, during her morning coffee, during the long hours of patrol when one truck looked much like another. She'd replayed their conversation 100 times, cringing at her unprofessional moment of confession. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, she spotted his truck at a rest stop near milepost 185. Her pulse quickened, and before she could second-guess herself, she pulled into the parking lot. Marcus was checking his vehicle during his mandatory break, walking around the truck with a clipboard. He looked up as the patrol car approached, and recognition flashed across his face. Officer Morrison. He straightened, suddenly formal. Mr. Chen. Rachel got out of her car, trying to appear casual. Random safety inspection. Mind if I take a look? Go ahead. Rachel made a show of examining his truck, checking the lights, the tire pressure, the cargo straps. Everything was immaculate. Of course it was. Taillights fixed, I see. Same day you stopped me. I wasn't about to risk another citation. Smart man. Rachel leaned against the side of his truck, her professional excuse exhausted. Look, I want to apologize for what I said last time. That was out of line. Marcus set down his clipboard. It's forgotten. Is it? Rachel searched his face. Because I haven't been able to forget it. Officer Morrison. Rachel. When I'm not on duty, I'm just Rachel. But you are on duty. Technically, yes. She removed her cap, running a hand through her hair. Mr. Chen, Marcus, I don't do this. I don't chase married men. I don't cross professional lines. But there's something about you that I can't get out of my head. Marcus took a step back. I love my wife. I know you do. I could hear it in your voice when you talked about her. Rachel's eyes glistened. And that's exactly what makes you so. Look, I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that you made an impression. A good man is rare out here on this highway. Most people I stop are angry, or scared, or trying to manipulate me. You were just, genuine. Rachel. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. I'm flattered. Truly. But I made promises. Vows. My wife trusts me, and I won't betray that trust, not for anything. Not even for someone who sees you. Really sees you? My wife sees me every day. She knows my faults and loves me anyway. That's worth more than any spark of attraction. Rachel nodded slowly, blinking back tears she hadn't expected. You're right. Of course you're right. I'm sorry. I should go. Rachel, wait. Marcus's voice stopped her as she turned toward her patrol car. Can I tell you something? What? When I got home that day, after you stopped me, I told my wife about our conversation. All of it, including what you said at the end. Rachel felt her stomach drop. You did? Yes. And you know what Linda said? She said, that officer has good taste, but she's barking up the wrong tree. You're mine. Marcus smiled. Then she laughed and made me my favorite dinner. That's the kind of woman I married. Secure, trusting, and strong enough to laugh at temptation. She sounds incredible. She is. And somewhere out there, there's someone incredible for you too. Someone who's available and worthy of what you have to offer. Don't settle for scraps from someone else's table. Rachel wiped her eyes quickly. When did a truck driver become so wise? I've got a lot of time to think on these long roads. Marcus picked up his clipboard. Take care of yourself, Officer Morrison. And thank you. For what? For reminding me how good I have it at home. Sometimes we forget to appreciate what we have until someone else sees its value. Rachel drove away from that rest stop with tears streaming down her face, not from heartbreak, but from a strange mixture of respect and self-reflection. Marcus Chen was right. She deserved someone who could give her their whole heart, not someone who belonged to another. 6 months later, Rachel pulled into a coffee shop in Tucson during her break. The place was crowded with the lunch rush, and she found herself in line behind a tall man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes. He wore a firefighter's uniform with captain's bars. Busy day? He asked, nodding at her uniform. Every day's busy on the highway. You? Just got off a night shift. Nothing like 12 hours of fire inspections and equipment maintenance to make you crave caffeine. They talked while waiting for their orders, an easy conversation that flowed naturally. His name was David, he'd been divorced for 2 years, and he had a dry sense of humor that made her laugh. When he asked for her number, she gave it without hesitation. As she drove back to her patrol route, Rachel thought about Marcus Chen and the wisdom he'd shared at that rest stop. He'd been right. There were good people out there, available people who could appreciate her without complications. She never saw Marcus again on her highway route, but she often thought of him when she needed a reminder of what integrity looked like. He'd been tempted, she'd seen it flicker in his eyes, but he'd chosen his family, his vows, his character over a momentary attraction. That was the kind of person Rachel wanted to be. Not someone who chased unavailable dreams, but someone who valued what was real and earned through commitment. 3 years later, Rachel married David in a small ceremony attended by their friends and family. As she stood at the altar, making her own vows, she understood what Marcus had been protecting. These promises weren't just words, they were the foundation of a life, the shelter against all the storms and temptations that would inevitably come. And if she sometimes wondered what had become of the truck driver who'd taught her about loyalty without meaning to, she wished him well on his long roads, wherever they led him. True integrity means honoring our commitments even when faced with attractive alternatives. The character we show when tempted reveals the strength of our values. A good person doesn't just avoid betrayal, they help others understand the importance of faithfulness and self-respect. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is helping them recognize their own worth and pointing them towards something better than what we can offer. Loyalty and honesty, even in difficult moments, build a foundation of trust that outlasts any fleeting attraction.